So a couple weekends ago, I got a call for a gig with really short notice. It was to play guitar in the pit band for a local production of the musical Next to Normal by Brian Yorkey and Tom Kitt. I got the call on Sunday, the Sitzprobe was that upcoming Saturday, opening night was the following Friday, and it was supposed to run for 9 shows over 3 consecutive weekends. I agreed to do it, and the director brought me the guitar book on Tuesday. So I basically had 4 days to learn the whole show before the first rehearsal with the band. And we're talking about a 2-hour musical that's well over 90% music. There's like 38 musical numbers. That's a lot of songs. Could it be done? Yes, of course. And I did do it. Kind of. I didn't have the whole thing mastered by the first rehearsal, but I at least had a decent handle on a lot of the songs. So I didn't fully learn the thing in 4 days, but I continued to practice in Woodshed after each rehearsal the following week. And by the time we got to opening night, I was very comfortable with my parts and the band was really sounding good as a whole. So still, we're talking about learning almost 2 hours of music in 10 or 11 days, within an otherwise already busy schedule. So in this video, we're going to look at my process for doing just that, and we're going to hone in on the part writing aspect of it. Step 1. Skim it. Guitar books for musicals are pretty much always notated in a combination of traditional standard notation and slashed rhythm notation with chord names over the staff. Sorry kids, no tab, no Nashville number system. You're going to have to read music for this kind of gig. Prior to all this, I had never heard of the show, so the songs were completely unfamiliar to me. So I'll flip through the book and just take a look at what I'm going to have to deal with. Are there tricky licks? Are there a lot of involved chord changes? Are there any complicated time signature things happening? In this case, the answer to all of those questions is yes. Step 2, read through it. I sit down with my guitar and I go song by song. I'm not listening to any recordings, I'm just getting my hands on the music. As I do this, I make note of what's easy and I highlight the things that are difficult. With such a short deadline to learn this stuff, I don't need to be wasting a ton of time running stuff that's easy. I need to budget my time and focus on the stuff that's difficult. So I'll circle stuff, write things down, come back to it later. Step 3, work it all out. Of the musicals I've played for, this one is by far the most challenging. It's musically challenging, not so much technically difficult. There's really just a lot of tricky cues and transitions and things. A pretty small portion of it is licks and riffs explicitly written out as notes. I actually prefer things to be written that way because then I can just play what's on the page. But this show has a lot of chord changes and things where the specific voicings are left up to interpretation. And you might think, yeah, that's fine, just play the chords. But to make what you're playing fit really well, there's a number of things you have to take into consideration. In this production, we've got a 5-piece band with guitar, piano, bass, drum kit, and keyboard playing all the string parts. So we've got multiple chord producing instruments, and most of the chords are not just triads. A lot of them have added ninths and fourths and suspensions and things. So there's a lot of colorful stuff happening. It would be unwise for me to try to play every note in every chord because 1, that's going to make everything more physically demanding to play, and 2, it's going to make everything sound really muddy if there's all this excessive note doubling happen with the piano, bass, and strings. So my priority is to play as few notes as possible in most of the chords. It's more practical for the quality of the performance, and it's also more practical for me because it makes everything easier to play and allows me to work smarter, not harder. The kicker is that doing this takes a little creativity and some theory. In some places I will play fuller voicings and let note doubling happen, like in the refrains and choruses. But for verses, I try to keep it thin. And if you're smart about this, you can actually come up with parts that are easy to the point where they're hard to mess up. And as you do this, it's especially helpful to have heard the songs because this will ensure you're being musically appropriate. Once I really started working out my parts, I was referencing the original Broadway cast recording on Spotify to get a better sense of things. And then after the Sitzprobe, I had a much clearer picture of what I ought to do. We'll look at an example. There's a song in the second act called Better Than Before. This one kicked my butt for a bit. There's a spot where the band vamps over some dialogue, and my part shows this. So I have to play this James Taylor-esque arpeggio pattern on an F major chord. And then when the vocal resumes, this is what I have. So I have to keep playing that pattern over all these chords. Those chords have a lot of numbers in them. And this thing really moves, so I want to keep the motor running in the right hand while I do as little as possible in the left hand. So after winging this part and butchering it for the first couple rehearsals, I took the time to work out exactly what voicings I would play. To do this, I considered what notes are in each chord, as well as their function within the key. This part is in F major, by the way. For F, I just keep playing the same thing coming out of the vamp. Now, for chords like F over E, this means that the whole band is playing an F major chord, but the note E is being played in the lowest register. In a band setting like this, I usually just ignore these because the bass player is going to play the E. So I can just keep playing the F major chord I was already playing in the previous measure. But for the sake of adding a little bit of motion to my part, I decided to move the lower F down to E. It's not really a technical challenge for me to do this. Next is a B flat add 9. That just means it's a B flat major chord, so B flat, D, and F with an added ninth. That would be C. I'm already playing F and C, so I can keep those the same. For the A and the E, I moved them both up to B flat and F. I'm not playing a D here, but that doesn't matter because the pianist is going to play it. Next chord is C7 sus. A lot of the time you see sus2 or sus4 chords, and in those, the third of the chord is replaced with either a suspended second or fourth above the root. It's presumed that the suspension will then resolve to the third. In cases like this, where it just says sus, it's usually implying a suspended fourth. So the notes of this chord will be C, F, G, and B flat. Well, look at that. I'm already playing C, F, and B flat, so I'm not going to change anything. Next is a B flat sus augmented 4-2. This means a B flat chord with a suspended second and a sharp fourth. So B flat, C, E natural, and F. Once again, I'm playing 3 of those notes already from the previous measure, so I don't need to change anything. That's 3 measures in a row that I can just play the same thing. The bass player is moving the root, and the pianist is grabbing the E natural somewhere already. F sus 2 over A, to me, is a strange way of naming this chord. And F sus 2 is F, G, and C. The G is the suspension that replaces the third, which would be A. But there's an A in the bass, which contradicts it being a suspended chord. I'd probably call it F add 9 over A. That makes a little more sense to me. But anyway, the notes would be F, G, A, and C. So to highlight the fact that this is apparently supposed to be a sus 2 chord in its upper voices, I'm not playing the A. So I'm dropping the B flat to G, and keeping the other notes the same from the previous chord. G sus. Again, if you see sus, it's probably wanting a suspended fourth. So my notes are G, C, and D. I can keep the C from the previous chord, and I'm moving the others to what's convenient in the position I'm in. When it resolves to a G major triad in the second half of this measure, I just drop the C to B on the open second string. Next one is C7 sus. I just play it the same way I played it in the 4th bar of this section. When it resolves to C7, I drop both Fs to Es. The next 3 bars are the same as the first 3, so I do all those the same as before. Then we have B flat minor over D flat. Classic move from the 4 chord to a minor 4. B flat minor is B flat, D flat, and F. The only thing I need to change is the C, which I can move up to D flat. Next is F over C. Again, ignore the C in the bass because the bass player will play it. So I'll just play F major like I have been in this section. D minor over B is going to be D, F, A with B in the bass. I guess that technically makes it a D minor 6, but I don't need to worry about that. Bass player has the B covered, so I can just play D minor. To do that here, I can move the C up to D and leave everything else the same. B flat add 9 I play just like the previous 2 times I played it. It's still a small movement to get there. And then we have a whole note on B flat minor 6. That's going to be B flat, D flat, F, and G. I could move one of these notes to G, but I decided to keep things as static as possible, so the C goes up to D flat. The pianist will play the G, and then it goes on to other stuff from there. But here's what my part sounds like with a bass line playing whole notes underneath. So obviously this is not the only way to play this section. I could have done any number of things, but I think what I came up with suits the music very well. It hits all the harmonies and it doesn't draw a lot of attention to itself. And it shouldn't draw attention to itself because there's singing going on over this whole section. The singing and the acting is the focus. I'm just the accompaniment here. It's easy for me to play, and I don't have to bust my hands to try and represent the full harmonies implied on the page. On the surface, it may look intimidating, but if you understand what the music is doing and what the notes are in every chord, you'll realize how simple something like this can actually be. Being mindful of your voice leading from one chord to the next is really all it is. So that's all I've got on the subject. I hope you found it helpful in some way. If you're in or around Nashville, Next to Normal runs 2 more weekends at Playhouse 615. It's an amazing show that explores the stigmas surrounding mental health crises, their impacts on family relationships, and issues that psychotherapy is unable to address. Everyone involved in the show is incredible. The music, the cast, the lighting, and sound are all excellent. If you're in the area, come check it out. And you can come say hey to me after the show. Also, if you're interested in private Zoom lessons, I have a small number of openings right now. Feel free to reach out to me about that if you're interested. And with that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.